Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Lethal Weapon, as well as the latest episode of Bull. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Lethal Weapon, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of Bull. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Lethal Weapon. Another great episode. I love that this week's case involved bringing Leo back. And I immediately like the fact, is he bringing up the fact that it's like, I get it, Roger. You kind of ignored me every time I was like trying to like call you or email you and even bring you to the midnight screening of Wonder Woman. It's like, oh, how was it? It was good. It was great. It's great. It's just like that missing each other, like bonding a little bit. And it's just like, because it seems like, Leo's not the type of person, I guess, in his line of work. I mean, he has friends, because even the guy that died in this episode, Howard, was his friend. He considered him kind of his best friend. But I guess it's just, I don't know, it's just interesting seeing him kind of bonding with Roger out of anybody. So it's kind of interesting considering the fact is, Thomas Lennon has also done the show like with Matthew Perry, The Odd Couple. So it almost seems like it represents, it's kind of interesting when you break it down, because like the Odd Couple can also be used to reflect Roger and Riggs. So it's just kind of interesting how that kind of works out like that too. But I don't know, it was kind of an interesting thing. I also thought it was kind of interesting. Did not expect things to kind of go down the way they did in Howard's home when he gets attacked by the dude and he accidentally kills him. And they walk in with him with like glass shard in his hand. It's like, yeah, from an outside perspective, I was surprised. You had Riggs being like, wow, dude, we didn't know a lawyer for the lawyer. But it's just like, I was like, from an outside perspective, it's like, wow, I was not expecting you to be just like hardcore crazy like that. But then, sadly, and then I love the whole him and Bailey and Bowman situation. Like, oh, the B team. And she's like, what? I can kill you like 9 different ways with any object in this room. He's looking around. And when it's all said and done, she's like smiling at him very devilishly. And I love that it isn't just him bonding with Roger. It's also him bonding with them too, to the point, like I said, I couldn't have done it without the B team. I know they're the underdogs. Nobody expected anything from them. I didn't, but they helped break the case and everything. And Bowman kind of gives him the finger. It's like, yeah. And you have Bailey being like, now this is going to stick, isn't it? But Bowman's kind of enjoying it. It's just like, just showing you how much of a man you're just an all art. Just like, yeah, like he's embracing it. Just like, is there anything that can bring you down, Bowman? Which we're going to end up finding out eventually later on. We're going to have to, that there's something tragic behind Bowman's past, much like we kind of learned about Rick's history in this episode. But I'll get to that soon enough. But it's actually kind of sad, because basically the entire case ended up being revealed that like, oh, the reason why Howard died was because he was blackmailing some people who were they were at the jockey, there's a whole bunch of jockeys, I think, at the place he was, at the racehorse track, he was listening in on some recordings, and he ended up overhearing that basically they were planning a heist, and he wanted $10,000, and that's why they ultimately killed him. And it's ultimately because Howard was trying to pay off all his different debts. Not necessarily he was 100% greedy, but it was just like, he was behind, he owed a lot of people money, so it's kind of his last-ditch effort to fix all of that. So, but that was just a smaller part of the episode. A big part of the episode, it's Riggs. Obviously, in this episode, his house gets towed. Trish tries to help and everything. Roger's even offering to let him stay at their house, and it's just not something Riggs is willing to compromise with, because anytime it's like, oh, nope, no thank you, no thanks, like at every turn, it's just like, well, can I get my house back? And it's like, well, this isn't the first time that's come up about your house being on that beach, which he's talked about why it's there. That beach is actually like one of Miranda's favorite spots, why he chose to be there. So him being there made him feel like he was a little bit closer to her. So I figured, I was curious like whether like the home had any sentimental value to him, and it didn't seem like it really did. It was just, a place to live. But every turn, it just seemed like he wasn't willing to accept people's help, and it just kind of maybe like it seems like he's very hard at like it's hard to accept people's help for him, because even Roger's like, oh, I'm gonna put you in my will, and it's like, no thanks. He's like, what do you mean? And like turned into a big argument and stuff. I even love the fact is Avery's like, wait, you put Riggs in your will? Like, he's like, what's up with that? Because Avery is like, in Avery's mind, it's like, I've known you longer than Riggs. We've worked together we were partners before all this, and you're still gonna put Riggs before me. It's like, okay, what do you want? It's like, well, I want like your bedroom set or something like that. It's just so interesting. That is kind of like a middle finger to kind of slap in the face to Avery. But nevertheless, immediately my brain was thinking, well, I think Riggs is like that because he doesn't think he's going to outlive Roger, and that was his way of trying to handle it. Like, no, I don't want you to waste any of your time putting stuff towards me because I'm probably going to end up being dead before you, just whether it's by someone else's hand or my own. Like, I thought maybe that might be where his mindset is. And obviously, like, this whole situation's triggered some memories, forcing, like, Riggs to, like, because he did stop drinking for a while, but that kind of, like, has reared its ugly head up again. I'm sure, like, it's like when things are good in his life, like, it's, I'm sure, a combination of just losing his house in this episode, plus, stuff, Palmer in its own way, like, it's just like things haven't worked out necessarily for him 100% in this season either. So it's been a little rough. But in this particular episode, it's just like the fact is that he got drunk, stole back his trailer, and like ran into like the Murtaugh's like house. Well, not their house, but like their fences, and maybe like, part way into the lawn. And it's like, what were you thinking? It was just like, I mean, to the point he was mortified when he woke up. He's like, holy crap, because he didn't remember doing that. And he tries to apologize to Trish, but Trish is like, I'm going to talk. Which the fact of the matter, she was so upset and disappointed she couldn't even really say what she wanted to say. And I think that hit Riggs hard. But he does make it up for it later on when he fixes the fence. Because this all stems back from, and it's something that Riggs kind of brought up, like this whole situation, his home being taken from him, kind of reared up some ugly hairs. Because Cahill did a little digging into Riggs this episode about his childhood. He moved around a lot, specifically moved around a lot with his dad, then a lot on his own. We ended up finding out him being in a lot of foster homes too, because like I brought up earlier, like this season, like this is the first season we really tackled anything related to Riggs' life, because everything before now has always been about essentially any slight family familiar side of things. Has always been like, well, the Murtaughs being like family, and the only other family he's ever really known, at least we've known in the confines of the show, was Miranda's family. But now we find out he's been in foster families, bouncing from place to place. Because there was a moment in the episode that reflected like a pat. Like we saw this moment where his dad, you could tell, is a little drunk, uses a bat and smashes open the lock on their house because they got evicted. And it's something that Riggs had said to Cahill. He was like, oh yeah, my dad tried the best that he could. And he's like, he's the reason why I became the man that I am. He's smiling, but it's like, it's not meant to be a good thing, the reason why he is the way he is. Because there's a point he has a bat too, and he's beating up that long shark, Tony Guzman, and he kind of loses control to the point like Roger had to stop him. And he even says the same line of like, oh, look, home run, so kind of showing, like that cycle repeated. You even see at one point, the rain made him remember like his dad chasing him out of the house. Like, it's not just afraid of being beaten, but like so much worse for him to hide, to be in fear. His dad telling him is like, you better like be lucky that I don't find you myself. And it's just like his dad you see the fear in Riggs' eyes, and kind of shows you like, it's basically showing you, we don't have the full story, but basically, especially when you compare this to the previous memory of like hanging out with his dad and stuff, around that time his mom was sick. So you can tell like his dad just fell apart after his mom died. And I guess that actually reflects their current situation, like Riggs' current situation, because after Miranda died, he fell apart too. And I guess that's just part of their family. It's just like, I guess he saw what happened with his dad when his dad lost a woman that he loved, like, because he was not, like, it seemed like he might be a little like harsh on his son, like during the whole hunting thing. And it's like, well, it seemed like he was a little more understanding. He's like, it's okay, like teaching him valuable lessons, but it's like, it's a very different guy in this like episode that we saw. So, but all this situations kind of brought up like bad memories for Riggs, which is kind of a little sad. Even to the point, like even Leo was like, don't be so mad at Riggs. Like, you should be able to tell like the reason why he's acting the way he is because he's in pain. That's the only reason why anyone would do what they're doing right now. What he's doing right now is because they're in pain. And that's Riggs' way of like a combination of like, he's not good at asking for help, because he'd much rather push people away than let them know that he's in pain. Because I guess it's how his dad dealt with things, and it's how Riggs has lived most of his life handling things. Because for him, he brings it up to Trish like, a home, something he never really had. Moved from place to place so often, and just probably no place to ever really call his home until he met Miranda. But Trisha's like, a home isn't just where you live, where you lay down your head. It's the place where people welcome you back with open arms. I always have the door open, even when you're at your lowest, you know? So, I don't know. I'd be very interested to learn more about that going forward, like his family situation, like what down exactly. Because he ended up bringing it up to Cahill's like, oh yeah, it was the same gun that he used to kill his dad. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what he said on that particular episode when we went down memory lane, that rifle. Also appreciate what Cahill did. She got him like set some stuff like, okay, just in case you don't have your home again. And it's like, you can try as you might, but the fact of the matter is, it might suck for you, but the people who care about you are not giving up on you, no matter how much you basically, like I said, pushes them away. Because Riggs thinks, in his mind, he thinks he has everything under control, which obviously this episode shows that he doesn't. But it's just, and it's something that Roger kind of brings up. The fact is that he wants to fix Riggs, but Trish kind of brings it up like, maybe there's just some people you can't fix, but Roger doesn't want to believe that. He's like, no, that can't be the case, so. Because that shows you too, like, no matter how frustrated they are, no matter how hard it can be sometimes, they still welcome Riggs back with open arms because they love him and they care about him, So, I do appreciate that he gets put back into, he's like, tell Raj, put me in the will, and he does, and it's like, oh, you get my sauce. Oh, I thought you said it was a marinade. That's that little moment at the end. And I also appreciate that his place is now with the Murtaughs, but it's in a garage. So his little space, because I'm sure for him, they're like, you're family to us. But I think even for Riggs, that's still a little harder to process. So I think in his mind, it's like, I'm going to stay here in my little corner so I don't disrupt the flow of the Murtaugh home, to a certain extent, so that he doesn't, I think in his mind, maybe doesn't completely invade their space. But you see it at the very end of the episode, he's sitting in his trailer and he smiles because he feels that feeling of home that he probably hasn't felt since Miranda. Definitely hasn't felt since Miranda. So that was really nice. And also, I love the fact is that at the end, Avery's like, wait a minute, you're suing us, Murtaugh? He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, no, yeah, for, God, what was it he said exactly? It was like emotional distress and stuff like that from the fact is the tattoo he got during the line of duty. He's like, wait, what? And then it's like, no, Leo had set the whole thing up. He's like, no. Don't worry. I'm going to do this pro bono. We're just going to have to spend a lot of time together working on this. And Roger's like, Leo, you don't have to sue somebody just so we spend time together. And it's like, well, he kind of does because he's like, don't worry. Like me and Trish, we're going to go out to the movies. He's like, I'll be there. And it's like, it's a little sad because it's like, he's doing all this just to hang out with Roger. Like I said, it's just so interesting. Like I said, a very good episode in that regard of just like, fun with the bringing back a character like Leo and just the whole dynamic of the entire episode, but also sad just because of the whole aspect of like learning about Riggs' past a little bit more, which like I said, I'd like to learn more about it, like probably more time. I mean, the way things are, that must mean foster homes probably weren't a good thing for him either, just because he was carrying all that stuff from his family. Like, I mean, because that's the thing too, is like, that was his mom and dad. What about grandparents? That never came up in the picture. Did his parents not have any siblings or what, I love to kind of get more time with him and his mom too. I mean, because we never got introduced to his mom. We've heard talk about it, but we never actually get to see her. So I'd love to kind of get some like memories in the future of getting them kind of together. And once again, what about Roger? We haven't seen anything on Roger's side of the family or Trisha's side of the family so far in the show. So maybe that's something we could look forward to as well. But either way, I'm like I said, great episode. I'm very interested to see what goes on in the next episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of Bull. Another great episode. I really like this episode because I really love episodes that kind of leave you feeling like a little morally gray. Like in this particular episode, running it down, basically it deals with a teacher named Lacey who ended up changing an answer on the test. Now, was she the only one? No, but what puts Lacey in the spotlight, even though there were like 5 other teachers doing the exact same thing, is because she did it for one particular student. She changed one answer. But the reason why she's being brought up on charges is because she's the only one that confessed. There were other teachers that were caught too, but she was the only one that came up. And they know who those other teachers are, but there's no evidence for it. So this case got really particular in many different avenues. And just the fact of the matter is, for one, she confessed. So that really already kind of hurts the case a little bit. But also the fact is that the union rep Gwen and Bull didn't really get along. Bull was kind of saying like, let the trial, like their defense be necessity. That basically what she did was out of necessity, which in that case, it's like it was necessary for her to do what she did. Like it was kind of a almost life or death type of situation is what that's what Gwen was kind of labeling it as. Like that's usually only held in defense of like in something that was kind of life or death. Like it was a needed thing to happen. It's like this wasn't needed. And that's the whole point of what they had to try and prove. But I mean, granted, it put, Bull and Gwen did not agree to the point she actually kind of doesn't go along with his strategy at the very end. He's like, I thought we were on the same team. She's like, no, you thought I worked for you? This was the whole point, to prove to you I don't. Just to give him the middle finger with this whole regard. Because her whole platform was just like, standardized testing in general. Because what I appreciate about this episode too is that everyone had to take the Machiavellian test. Essentially, it kind of goes back to the whole aspect of my favorite thing. If you've listened to the podcast long enough, it's my favorite type of story of do the ends justify the means. And it's like in the Machiavellian case of like, hey, no matter what you do, like the bad, it's okay that if the bad you do, it's all for the sake of something good. And Bull had everyone take the test. The only ones that kind of scored low, meaning they're don't kind of follow that belief, is Chunk and Cable. They're more like, be honest. But everyone else, like Danny and Marissa scored in the 60s. Bull scored like 77. And even Benny, who was against it, he scored like a 77. He's like, I don't even think this test is right. Because he was all about like, honesty being the best policy and everything. And you had Gwen lying saying she was in the 30s, but then Bull checked her number. It was 91. So it's like going along with that aspect of now, that's also interesting too, because at one point in time they were winning the case, but then it turned ugly because, turned ugly in a sense of like, it was working out well, even though they weren't agreeing and everything, but then it turned ugly because the ADA wanted to strike a deal. Lacey could keep teaching and Tyler would get to go to college if it meant her turning on the other teachers, which Lacey, it came down to her. What did she want to do? She didn't want to do it. And it's the best option from a law standpoint of like, in her situation, this is the best deal they were going to get, but she didn't want to take it because it's like, yeah, I want to help me and Tyler. I want to ensure I'm able to keep teaching because that's what she loves and what she wants to do. But it doesn't mean she doesn't want to destroy someone else's future. She wants to make sure Tyler gets his future while also not destroying those other teachers' future. And it's kind of interesting because we never actually got perspective on why the teachers did what they did. We got plenty of explanation on why Lacey did what she did. She explained it basically because for her, Tyler comes from a very messed up backstory. Like, the fact of the matter is he has issues with his mom who does drugs. He's got a little brother he's got to take care of. His life is very complicated. The reason why he showed up late. Plus, so because he showed up late on the test, he has so much he was distracted by. Obviously he showed up late, so he had less time on the test. So when it came down to it, he had to rush. So, and it's not like she erased a lot to give him a perfect score. She erased one answer to give him enough, like a 65, just so that he'd have enough to kind of go through the test. To go to a college, because she had been previously working with Tyler over the past 3 years, because he went from like a D-ish to like a C grade to now being like a good B grade. Because she saw the potential he had, and she didn't want to see that future tossed away by something that was outside of his own control. So, and kind of going along the same lines, it's actually kind of interesting because Gwen actually leads the case because she's like, no, this is suicide. She's like, I'd love to help you in any regard. In this particular session, I went above and beyond, but it's like, no, not going into his case where I know we're going to lose, and so on and so forth. So, even Bull was like, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that either. That took me by surprise. I knew she'd be against the idea, because it's kind of interesting too, because most lawyers, not all the time, but most lawyers that work with Bull tend to like be more okay with his plans and him kind of leading the way. In this particular case, she was super against it from the beginning, stay that way. So maybe you argue that's that whole Machiavellian aspect in her of just being like, I don't know. It was just interesting to see it kind of devolve into that situation. So, like I said, there are moments where other lawyers kind of take their own liberties and kind of run things their own way. So that's no surprise there. So, But that's why I go back to the aspect of like, I'm saying that this is such a morally great thing because it's like she did something wrong that has never been disputed. She said from the very beginning, she admitted to her fault. But at the same time, it's like, but she did it for someone's future, you know? And it's just, she did it for the right reasons. And it's just, that's why it leaves you conflicted. Me personally, I'm like, let it slide, you know? Because, I mean, once again, going back to it, I never really broke it down, but it's like we never got to understand why the other teachers did it. Were they doing it because they all had their own respective Tylers, or are they just doing it just to bolster their school's like testing scores or something like that? Was it just to come and make the school look better, themselves look, their particular classroom or their teaching style better? You know, it seemed like Lacey was just trying to help out one particular student who knew like trouble would, you know, she just wanted to help that one student, you know. And I get it. Like I said, there's an aspect of like where you're showing favoritism, you're breaking the law. Like like I said, it's a gray situation. I would have found her not guilty. And that's what got me in this episode. I was like, they were holding hands and everything, and they're like, guilty. I was like, not guilty, not guilty. I was like, okay, there's a good chance they're going to say not guilty. Because there's always a part of me that's like, okay, they're going to lose this case like in some episodes. But I'm like, okay, I shouldn't be too surprised. But it's like, no, they hit you with a nope, guilty. And it's like, dude, that's harsh because it's like, you are like, he's even bull like crumbled. He's like, no, don't worry about this. I'm so sorry. I told you to put your faith in me. I failed you. And he's like, I'm gonna fix this. And it's like, that was, I was kind of worried, but there was still some part of me that was hoping and believing it'd be not guilty. It wasn't expecting a guilty. And it's like, and even she's like, no, I did do it. Like, I admit my fault. But this meant like she had a felony on her record, meaning she couldn't teach anymore. And this also meant kind of undoing what she did with Tyler. Even though Tyler took the test, got an 82%, and it showed that basically extenuating circumstances is what made him kind of like, and put in that position where, because Lacey knows his situation because she's tutored him so much and saw his home situation, knew exactly what would go down to kind of make him fail. She saw the circumstance and knew that it would mean that he didn't score well, you know? I am curious how the other teachers got caught, though. I am curious about that. But either way, I wasn't expecting that at all, dude. That caught me off guard. Felt so bad. But this kind of goes in hand to hand with that situation at the beginning of the episode, which was a little humorous. I did love the fact is Bull's like, you know, donating money and he's throwing up the price of like, oh, gets to 8,000, the person in the back gets 9,000. Never got to see who the person in the back was. And it's like, see, I told you, I know when to back down. And it's like, oh, the mayor decided she wants both of you. And it's like, oh, and now he has to pay that 8,000. It's like, that's what you get. I was like, because at the beginning I was like, he's going to have to pay the money. And then and like, oh, I guess you don't have to pay the money. Oh, never mind. You do have to pay the money too. So, because all this was set in motion by the mayor. The mayor kind of suggested this case to Bull. And it turns out the reason why, I mean, because ultimately Lacey is going to be okay because the situation is like she can get a job in some other city. This in particular affects her only in New York. The fact of the matter is, it's like, oh, basically alluding to like, oh, there's something in Massachusetts and stuff like that. The reason why, and it's kind of messed up because it's almost like a bureaucracy type of thing, that this wasn't even about Lacey. Like, oh, she was a good person. And, you know, because even Bull's like, she's a great person. Because even he tested her, like, because he knows that she comes from a wealthy family, which plays into the part I'm about to break down. But obviously, like, she comes from a wealthy family, but she, rather than getting like a high-powered lawyer or getting her family kind of sweep this under the rug, she got a union rep and tried to face this herself because she admits to herself, she's like, I know I messed up. My parents never too happy about me becoming the career path that I've chosen. So she's like, this is what I did. I did something wrong. I'll handle it myself. So, and also like, cause you know, cause it, you know, this is what she loves. Like ever since she was a little girl, because of her own respect, the situation of kind of growing up in Switzerland, you know, never really having someone understand her. Our teacher was there to kind of sit down and talk to her and understand her. And she kind of wanted to be that for other people. So, you know, you see that she's trying so hard. When she sees someone like Tyler, who people have given up on, she wants to try her best for. So, but going back to it, it seems like the mayor suggested this case, not because, like, oh, this is a good teacher kind of being screwed over. It's like, no, her dad is a wealthy individual. And it's like, oh, to be in his good graces, kind of like, I was like, oh man, do a favor for him. She brought this case and dribbled it down to Bull, because even when it came to the ride at the end of the episode, she didn't actually show up herself because she really didn't care. It's like she's feigning, you know, it's something that, you know, Bull kind of basically talks about, the fact is that the mayor and Machiavelli would kind of, go get along very well. Because for her, it's like, oh, I'm doing, who cares? Like, because it's not even about like doing a good thing for the bad reason. It's just like you don't care. It's just it's a political move for her, and it's like that's shitty. I hope we kind of see the mayor in the future kind of like need help, and Bull kind of be very hesitant to help her in that regard. Because I was like, that's so crappy, and even like that secretary dude that Bull was talking to was like not really understanding it either. Because it's just like they didn't care. And it almost undermined everything that Lacey fought so hard for with her dad like backing her up like that, because it's like this was her thinking she was doing this all on her own, but it was actually just trickled down from her dad, but still it's just like they couldn't just suggest this because of the merit of just all the good merit she's built up, just showing what kind of a good person she is, trying so hard to help someone that once again is just political gain. So Bull decides, like, you know what, screw it. What I want you to do is I want you to help out Tyler. That's it. Leave me alone. And just it's like, you know what, driver, you can stop the horse. I'm gonna walk the rest. I'm gonna drop off here and just go off on my own. So you can see how much that kind of irritated Bull to hear that whole circumstance, to learn that that's what this all came down to. That even Lacey's situation was, it was just a play in like the mayor's little game, in a twisted sense, so that was just kind of sucky. So, but even though it kind of had that sucky-ish outcome, at the very least, hopefully this means Lacey will have more opportunity to help people grow and give new opportunities for other people, the other Tylers out there. And, Tyler will hopefully have a bright future for himself as well as for his family, so that's all you can hope for. And another interesting side of this episode dealt with Marissa, because her and Kyle ended up looking into her finances and realizing the fact is she doesn't have a lot of money like in savings, in particular because it's like I said, that's been a running theme this season so far, has been like money has been an issue. It seems like she doesn't have any money really stashed away for the future to kind of build upon, kind of stuff to kind of, I guess, relax on, like, have money in her savings that she can, like, live the rest of her life comfortably. Because it's like, oh, you're in the middle of your life or whatever, you really have any life savings type of stuff, so because she's paying for her own place, she's also paying for her mom's place, like, which are both nice places, and then on top of that dealing with her own debts and stuff like that. So he's offering to help her, which she at first is super pissed about, but she eventually later on talks to Bull and is kind of like, well, because the thing is, like, Kyle was talking about, like, don't worry, I'm going to take your money, I'm going to multiply, I'm going to expand it, I'm going to take the $75,000 you give me or something, and I can turn it into $300,000. I just want to help you. I want to make sure you're secure. You never let me pay for anything. You always want to pay for yourself. And that's just because, like, hey, you're a powerful, independent woman. It's like, yeah, I get that, but I want to help you. Let me be there to help you, So, which you understand the sentiment, but there's a part of my brain that's like, that's going to come back to bite Marissa in the ass, because it seems like she accepts it later on in the episode. I mean, it doesn't happen, but the way she's talking about it seems like she's accepting it. But I'm like, that's going to come back to bite you in the ass. You're going to end up finding out that Kyle's embezzling money, that he's part of some big, huge Ponzi scheme or something. I don't know. I'm just waiting for that to turn back. Hopefully, I'm wrong. I'm not always right about these things. I get very suspicious about people. If you've heard enough of the podcast I've done in the past, you're like, I'm super against this particular character. And it's like, oh, that character actually turned out to be pretty cool. I was kind of like an asshole against him the entire time. But nevertheless, that's immediately where my brain is on that. So hopefully I'm wrong and Kyle treats Mercer right. Because if he doesn't, we all know that Bull is going to take him down a peg or two. Once you even had that conversation, because it's like, Mercer's like, why don't we trust people? And it's like, it's like both basically, it's the nature of the work. They spend so much time not believing anything that their clients say, making people believe what they or their clients say, So when you spend so much of your life dealing with the truth and the lies like that, when you kind of deal with more the uglier side of things, with the having to weed out, the lies and truths from some people, you realize that people are a lot less honest than you think they are, and so that bleeds over into your personal life as well, So, and once again, it's one of those situations where you have like Marissa kind of walking away, and Bull's like, oh yeah, you're already leaving. You're welcome, aside for that situation of like. He's like, oh, you can always come to me for advice. And it's just like kind of more of what I've talked about a couple episodes back about the whole like bond between Marissa and Bull, like being a little bit there, but at the same time it's dwindling a little bit. And you see that he can't help but notice it. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see where that goes because obviously, out of anything in this episode, that's going to be a continuing factor. We'll probably never cut back to this particular story, not unless we come across Gwen again, or maybe some point in the future, like I said, the mayor, or maybe like Lacey's family. But like I said, it's an episode that kind of left me feeling a little grayish. Like I feel like not too many episodes of Bull kind of make you feel like that. Some do, but I don't know. This one in particular, maybe it's just because of my own. It's like you can understand why Lacey did what she did, but at the end of the day, it's a situation of like no matter why she did it, she still did what she did, and that's what matters most. So it still wasn't enough to convince people that it was a necessity, no matter what. That Tyler retook the test and proved that like his extenuating circumstances were a contributing factor. It still wasn't enough to convince a lot of people. So, like I said, there's still some silver lining to it because of the respective situations, but still. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.